Good day, class. I welcome you today to our class on chemistry. I want to continue our introduction to chemistry on mixtures and how to separate them. We define mixtures as constituent of two or more substances that can be separated by physical methods or physical means. And we want to consider them one after the other. So we want to do these separation techniques and the types of separation techniques. We have sieving, magnetic separation, sublimation, decantation, filtration, centrifugation, evaporation, crystallization, fractional crystallization, precipitation, distillation, fractional distillation, separating funnel, and chromatography. We want to see how we use these separation techniques in separating mixtures. The first one is sieving. Sieving is a separation technique that is used to separate particles of different sizes. And where do we use sieving? We use sieving in Gary industries. It's also used in industry where you want to separate diamond and gold. So it's better you know their practical application than memorizing and all that. So sieving is used to separate, is used in Gary industries, or you use it in industries where you want to obtain diamond and gold. The second one is magnetic separation. Magnetic separation is used to separate magnetic materials. For example, you want to separate magnetic impurities from its tin hull. So you can use magnetic separation. The next one is sublimation. This sublimation is common in our SSC and WAEC questions. We have change of state. We have the solid, liquid, and gas. There are substances that change from solid to liquid. We call them melting. But we have substances that can change directly from solid to gas without passing through the liquid phase. Such substances like iodine and ammonium chloride fall into this category. And how do you separate them? Substances can sublime easily on heating are iodine and ammonium chloride. We have iodine and ammonium chloride. After knowing what sublimation can do and substances that can undergo sublimation, iodine, ammonium chloride, we go to decantation, filtration, and centrifugation. These three separation techniques are used to separate insoluble solid from its liquid. All this I normally call this DFC: decantation, filtration, and centrifugation. They are used to separate insoluble solids from its liquid. The one that is common in our WAEC is the one for filtration. Filtration is a separation technique that adopt the use of filter paper. Example, you have chalk dust. How do you separate a mixture of chalk dust from its liquid? You use what we call the filter paper. These are the common example. Another one is centrifugation. Centrifugation is also a separation technique that is used to separate insoluble solid from its liquid. We use this in hospital a lot. An instrument that is called a centrifuge. A centrifuge or centrifugation helps us to separate blood cells from the plasma. Having known the decantation, filtration, and centrifugation, we go over to another separation techniques that I called PECF. The reason why I'm using this is for memory aid. The P there is for precipitation, This E there is for evaporation, the C there is for crystallization, and F there is fractional crystallization. This separation techniques is used to separate soluble solid from its solution. It's used to separate soluble solids from its solution. Let's take the first one, which is evaporation. Evaporation is used in salt making industry. When you have the salt solution, how do you obtain the solid from the solution, that is the salt? You use what we call evaporation. Another one, which is crystallization. Crystallization is also used to separate soluble solid from its solution. There are substances that can easily decompose on heating from their solution. Salts, which can decompose easily from their solution. They can be separated easily using crystallization. Example is copper 2-tetraoxosulfate 6 pentahydrate. Example, copper sulfate pentahydrate. Another one is copper sulfate trihydrate. All these substances have their water of crystallization, and they can easily be separated using what? Crystallization. Industries that use crystallization are the drug and sugar making industry. The drug and sugar making industries, they make use of crystallization. Salts, which can decompose easily on heating on their solution. Another one is fractional crystallization. Fractional crystallization is also used to separate soluble solid from its solution. How? Substances or salts which have different solubilities are used to separate. The separation techniques used to obtain salts which have different solubility is fractional crystallization, where the substances which have not reached their solubility will have to be cooled. And the process of cooling, you can obtain the crystals of their salts. Another one is precipitation, or you call it, when they say precipitates, it means it becomes deposited. How can we separate precipitation? How can you use precipitation in our separation techniques? For instance, you want to separate iron sulfate from ethanol, or we know that iron sulfate can mix easily with water. In the process of mixing iron sulfate, which mix easily with water, how do you obtain crystals of iron sulfate? How? Iron sulfate can easily mix with water, but how can you obtain crystals of iron sulfate from its solution? We know that iron sulfate can mix easily with water, but it cannot mix easily with ethanol. What will you do? You will add ethanol. Ethanol cannot mix easily with iron sulfate. In the process of adding ethanol, crystals of iron sulfate will be deposited, and you can then use filtration. This separation technique, you can combine one or two to obtain the crystals of the salts. Then we have what we call distillation. Distillation is used to separate solvent from their solution. And this is used in processes where we have substances which have widely undulate, far apart boiling point. Look at the word I'm using. Widely undulate, far apart boiling point. And where do we use distillation? We use distillation in gin distilleries and water distilleries to obtain gin and water, respectively. We also have fractional distillation. Fractional distillation is also used to separate miscible liquids, that is liquids that are ranging from temperatures of greater than 10 degrees and less than 30 degrees. And where do we use fractional distillation? Fractional distillation is used to separate fractions of petrol and crude oil. You want to obtain fractions of petrol, you use fractional distillation. Fractions of petrol like petrol, kerosene, bitumen, and all that. So you may ask me, what is the difference between fractional distillation and distillation? The major difference between them is that, number one, their temperature, maybe 10 degrees Celsius and 30 degrees Celsius. Their temperature, close boiling point, not more than 30 but less than 30 degrees Celsius. Not less, greater than 10 but less than 30 degrees Celsius. But distillation, wide different boiling points. Another difference between distillation and fractional distillation is that for fractional distillation, in the construction of the apparatus, you must use what we call fractionating column, which is not present in distillation. That is their major differences. The next one is, we move to the next separation technique, which is called separating funnel. Separating funnel is used to separate immiscible liquids. Immiscible liquids. Let's write it here. Immiscible liquids. Liquids that cannot mix. Example, mixtures of petrol and water can be separated. It can be separated by separating funnel. The last example, which is chromatography. Chromatography is used to separate. The key word in chromatography is migration or movement. And we have different types of chromatography, be it absorption column chromatography, paper chromatography, gas, ion exchange chromatography, and all that. The key word in chromatography is migration or movement. And the best way to understand chromatography is the way they use them. It is used in the dye and ink industry. Hope you have gained something in my video. See you more for more updates on chemistry and how we use separation techniques in answering and tackling our question in WAEC, JAMB, and our SSC questions. I want to see your comments in my comment box to make the class more interactive. See you in my next video. Bye.